we're going to now analyze imagery in writing. So anytime that you analyze for imagery, consider this question. What type of imagery does the speaker use, and what is the effect of it? So in this case, we'll be analyzing imagery as part of a personal statement. So let's consider the rhetorical situation. Now, you obviously wouldn't need to consider the rhetorical situation if the imagery is part of a book or fiction, but it's always important to consider the context and the audience of this imagery. So in the excerpts that we read for the personal statement, we should look at the subject, which is robotics in the student's interest, the occasion, a personal statement. Many students often show one type of interest in personal statements. The audience, which is Johns Hopkins University. Purpose, to demonstrate the student's passion and dynamic nature. And the speaker, which is a student applying to a competitive research university. So he's trying to get into that university. When we look at a imagery paragraph, sometimes you'll be asked to write an introductory paragraph with a summary, but in this case, we're going to be looking at just imagery within this paragraph itself. So with the key question in mind, we should consider what the claim will look like. That means that we are stating the type of imagery or the descriptor of the imagery. Sometimes it's sufficient enough to just say the author uses visual imagery, but it is stronger if you write about using a descriptor of the imagery, so something more specific. And you also should state the purpose of that imagery in your claim. Your evidence will be quotes of the specific uses of imagery. Your explanation will go further into that about the effect of the examples of imagery in the context. So you are making an inference about all of the quotes together. So if you're using multiple quotes as your evidence, you're considering as if they are in a pattern. Sometimes you're just going to be focusing on quote individually. Your link is the key aspect here where you evaluate the use of imagery on the reader. So if you're doing rhetorical analysis, consider the specific audience of the specific use of imagery. And if it's a literary analysis, consider who might be reading it, what context of the time this story was written. Basically, you're figuring out what the author is trying to accomplish with this specific use of imagery. And we're going to be taking a look at a writing exemplar with the student's work. So in the claim, it says, in his college application personal statement to Johns Hopkins University, the applicant uses gritty imagery of his packed garage to represent his interest in robotics. Now, this claim provides a descriptor of the imagery with a purpose. In this example, it is stronger to use an adjective to describe the imagery rather than just visual imagery. The student immediately opens up with descriptions of the tainted air with unnatural fumes and floors stained with oil slicks before continuing to describe the garage as buried, unpleasant, and grimy. And as you can see, these are specific examples of the uses of imagery. And while these visual illustrations may seem unpleasant to the reader, the speaker in fact points out that these examples show his passion and dedication to robotics. Like a well-loved tool, his garage being messy belies his time spent there, as the readers can smell and see his projects come to life. And this highlights the effect on the reader that's unpleasant and why he would want that effect. He was also demonstrating what he is demonstrating with his constant use of his garage by comparing it to a well-loved tool, and how he accomplished that by showing that the readers can feel as if they're there. And that initial dirty imagery is unexpected, but when the student continues on to describe how robotics can combine with biology, astronomy, music, or ecology, he reveals how the field of robotics is just as messy as the applicant's garage. And as a result, the college admissions officer reading this personal statement would likely choose his application, since his description of his garage uncovers a dedicated yet dynamic member of the robotics community. And so this link gets deeper into the analysis of the specific use of imagery in the context of the whole personal statement, and specifically the audience, in this case, the admissions officer.